Welcome to Ugocy Stories. Today we have a beautiful love story that's full of surprises, heartbreak, and hope. Sit back, relax, and let this amazing journey touch your heart. Let's get started. Cynthia sat behind the counter of her small but well-stocked grocery shop in Guarimpa, Abuja. The air outside buzzed with life. Okada riders honked impatiently, customers haggled over prices, and the sun blazed down like a watchful eye. But inside her shop, everything was calm. Too calm. For someone like Cynthia, peace had started to feel like loneliness. She was 30, single, and doing just fine. Or at least that's what she told herself every morning. Her shop paid her bills, and she didn't need to beg anyone for food or clothes. In a city where many young women depended on men to survive, Cynthia stood tall on her own. Yet, there was one thing that money and independence hadn't brought her. True love. No man had ever chosen her for who she truly was. She had dated a few men over the years, but they either disappeared or used her until there was nothing left to give. Cynthia had become used to pretending that she didn't care, but deep down, the silence after each heartbreak screamed louder than any insult. Then came Ken. Ken was tall, well-spoken, and confident. He worked as a bank manager at Zenith Bank, and he carried himself like someone who knew his worth. When he started showing interest in Cynthia, she couldn't believe it. He would stop by her shop every morning to buy a bottle of water he didn't need, just so he could see her smile. "You should smile more often," he once said. "It suits you." And just like that, Cynthia fell. Their relationship grew quickly. Ken was charming and sweet, and Cynthia started to feel like maybe her luck was finally changing. They talked about the future, about marriage, even about building a business together. Ken made her believe in something she had almost given up on. One evening, as they sat under a mango tree behind her shop, Ken turned to her with a serious look on his face. "Babe, I need your help," he said. Cynthia looked at him, concerned. "What is it?" "I need to invest in a crypto deal. Its solid returns are crazy, but I need 1 million naira to lock in fast. I've asked around, but people are taking time. I just thought, maybe you could help me?" Cynthia hesitated. That was a lot of money. But she loved him, she trusted him, and more than anything, she didn't want to lose him. "I'll transfer it tomorrow," she said softly. Ken hugged her tight. "You're the best thing that's ever happened to me." 3 weeks later, Cynthia sat in her shop when her phone pinged with a WhatsApp message. It was from a former school friend, Sandra. "Babes, is this not your Ken getting married today at Jabi Lake Mall? I just saw pictures. I'm shaking." Cynthia's heart dropped. She opened her Instagram and searched Ken's profile. It had gone private, but that didn't stop people from tagging him in photos. Her fingers trembled as she clicked on a tag. There he was, Ken dressed in a white agbada, smiling beside a beautiful woman in a lace wedding gown. There were flowers, a big cake, laughter, love, and not one sign of Cynthia. Tears filled her eyes. The 1 million naira she gave him wasn't for any crypto investment. It was to fund this very wedding. Her knees felt weak, but she didn't fall. She stood up, locked her shop, and walked home with tears silently rolling down her cheeks. That night, she cried until her eyes swelled, but by morning, Cynthia wiped her face, tied her hair back, and opened her shop like nothing had happened. The pain didn't disappear, but her strength refused to bow. She told herself, "Maybe love is not for people like me. Maybe I should just focus on myself." But life had other plans, and Cynthia's story, though broken and bruised, was just beginning. Days passed, but the pain in Cynthia's chest never faded. She tried to forget, tried to smile for her customers at the grocery shop, but once she was alone, the sadness returned. People came in, bought their items, and left with cheerful greetings. Cynthia would nod, pretending to be okay. She wasn't. The memory of Ken's wedding photo haunted her. She couldn't understand how someone she trusted, someone who smiled at her like he truly cared, could use her like that. Not only did he lie about the N1 million he borrowed, but he also lied about everything else. Their relationship, his plans, even his promises. One night, as she closed her shop and walked home, her best friend, Jane, met her halfway. "Cynthia, you can't keep punishing yourself for what Ken did," Jane said gently. "I know, Jane," Cynthia whispered, "but I feel used, like I was nothing to him." "You were something. He was the nothing," Jane replied with a hug. For a while, Cynthia focused only on her shop. She stopped thinking about love. Her heart had become guarded. No more sweet words, no more promises. Then, one afternoon, while arranging cartons of milk outside her shop, a young man walked over with a friendly smile. He wore a company ID card on a lanyard around his neck. His name was Michael, and he had just been posted as an intern to an oil company down the street. "I see your shop every day on my way to work," he said. "You run it well." Cynthia smiled slightly. "Thank you." That was the beginning. Michael would stop by often, sometimes to buy drinks, other times just to chat. He was funny, respectful, and always had something kind to say. Gradually, Cynthia began to feel something again. Could this be a new start? Weeks passed, and Michael confessed his feelings. He wanted more than friendship. Cynthia, though scared, decided to give love one last try. Her heart, though bruised, still hoped. But just when she started to believe again, the truth dropped like thunder. Michael was married, with 2 children. He had a full family back home in an Umbra state. When Cynthia found out, it crushed her again. "You mean you have a wife and kids?" she shouted, eyes filled with disbelief. "I didn't want to lose you," he said weakly. "I was never yours to begin with," she replied, walking away with tears rolling down her cheek. This time, Cynthia didn't cry in public. She cried in her room, in the dark, hugging her pillow, questioning if real love was meant for her. Her heart hardened. She swore never to let any man close again. "I'd rather stay alone than be fooled again," she told herself. Little did she know, her real love story was just around the corner. Weeks turned into months. Cynthia buried herself in work. She avoided conversations about love, even when her friend Jane teased her with, "Valentine's Day is coming." Cynthia would just wave her hand and smile faintly. One Friday evening, Jane dragged her out of the shop. "Let's go to the cinema. Enough of this, your serious face. You need to breathe small." Cynthia didn't want to go at first, but Jane insisted. They arrived at a popular cinema in Abuja. The place was buzzing. Couples, families, teenagers, everyone looking happy and relaxed. Cynthia wore a simple black gown and flat slippers. She looked modest but beautiful in her own quiet way. As they walked to buy tickets, Cynthia bumped into a man. "Oh, sorry," she said quickly. No, I should be the one apologizing," the man replied kindly. He was a tall, middle-aged man, neatly shaved with silver strands in his short beard. His eyes were warm, and his smile was gentle. He wore a simple kaftan and leather slippers. He looked older, probably in his early 50s, but very well kept. "My name is Kelvin," he said, offering a hand. "Cynthia," she replied, shaking his hand slowly. He didn't try too hard to impress. He didn't flirt. He just smiled, excused himself, and walked into the cinema hall. Cynthia stood still for a moment. Jane leaned close and whispered, "He looks responsible and cute for an older man." "A beg, don't start," Cynthia said, but her heart beat a little faster. Inside the hall, Cynthia and Jane found their seats. Coincidentally, Kelvin sat just a row behind. He greeted them again with a soft smile before the lights dimmed. During the movie, Cynthia kept thinking about him. Something about his calm presence stayed in her mind. After the film, as people stood to leave, Kelvin approached her again. "I hope you enjoyed the movie." "I did," she replied. "Thank you. Would you mind if we talked sometime?" Cynthia hesitated. "I understand if you're not comfortable," Kelvin added quickly. "I'm not here to stress anyone." She nodded slowly. "Maybe." He smiled. "I'll leave it to fate then." As he walked away, Jane turned to her with raised eyebrows. "Cynthia, if you don't collect that man's number, I will." Cynthia laughed for the first time in a long while. That night, back at home, she couldn't sleep. She thought about how respectful Kelvin was. No pressure, no lies, just calm. But her heart had walls now. Older men, too, have secrets, she told herself. I'm not rushing into anything. Still, her thoughts kept going back to that moment he smiled and walked away. Mealy, just maybe, love wasn't done with her yet. Days passed, but Cynthia couldn't forget Kelvin's calm face. His words echoed in her mind, especially that line, "I'll leave it to fate." It wasn't pushy, just gentle. It made her feel seen, not hunted like before. One afternoon, while arranging items in her grocery shop, her friend Jane stormed in holding a paper bag of roasted corn. "Guess who I saw this morning at next cash and carry?" Jane said excitedly, chomping on the corn. Cynthia rolled her eyes, smiling. "Your cinema man, Kelvin. The man is looking fresh-o. He greeted me politely, even remembered my name." Cynthia chuckled. "You and your gist." "Don't joke with it. That man is different," Jane insisted. Later that week, Cynthia sat with her parents for dinner. Her mother, Mama Adan, wore a serious face as she served jollof rice. "My daughter," she began, "you're not getting any younger. See your cousin Amaka, married with 2 children. Your father and I are praying, but you need to open your heart." Cynthia looked down at her plate. She had heard it too many times. Her father, silent for a moment, added gently, "We just want your happiness." That night, she sat alone on her shop's front steps. The streetlights flickered and the breeze was cool. She remembered Kelvin again. Was it possible that her path had crossed with someone truly different? A week later, she saw Kelvin again. This time at a pharmacy. She was there to get paracetamol for a headache. He stood at the counter buying vitamins. "Cynthia," he said softly, surprised. She smiled shyly. "Kelvin." They chatted briefly, and before she left, he said, "Would you like to have lunch this weekend? Just lunch, no pressure." Cynthia stared at him. Something about him made her heart beat slower, not faster. Safe, after a long pause, she nodded.
"Okay."
Saturday came, and Kelvin picked her up. He drove a clean black SUV, not flashy but neat. He opened the car door for her, something no man had done before. They went to a quiet restaurant on the outskirts of Abuja, not crowded, with soft music playing. Over rice and pepper soup, Kelvin told her about his life. A widower for 7 years, no children, runs an oil servicing company, loves calm evenings and old high-life music. He didn't try to impress her, he just talked like a friend. Cynthia listened quietly, sipping her drink. She couldn't help but smile. "I'm not perfect, Cynthia," Kelvin said, "but I've learned how to treat someone with respect." That line stayed in her heart. After lunch, he dropped her at home, thanked her for coming, and drove off with a simple wave. Cynthia stood at her gate, watching his car disappear. Something was growing, softly, slowly. Was this love? The following weeks brought unexpected peace to Cynthia's heart. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't nursing heartbreak. She didn't feel used or deceived. Kelvin was taking things slow, and that alone felt like fresh air. He would often stop by her shop just to say hello or bring her a little something. Sometimes a book, sometimes fresh fruit. Nothing expensive, just thoughtful. He didn't rush her or pressure her to define anything. Her cool Friday morning, Jane burst into her shop with wide eyes and loud gossip. "Cynthia," she whispered dramatically, "do you know that people are already talking?" Cynthia blinked. "About what?" "About you and that big man. They say you've finally joined Sugar Baby Gang. Some are even calling him your sponsor. Can you imagine?" Cynthia's heart dropped for a second. She knew how people in their area could talk, but still, it stung. "Let them talk," she said calmly. "At least this one hasn't stolen my money or broken my heart." Jane sighed and hugged her. "You deserve happiness, my dear. Just be careful. I'm with you." But the whispers didn't end there. That evening, Cynthia's aunt came to visit. Auntie Rose was known for saying things without filters. as they sipped Zobo on the veranda.
Auntie Rose said bluntly, "Cynthia, why are you following an old man? What will you do when he starts using walking stick?" Cynthia kept her smile, but held her glass tighter. "Auntie, he respects me. He's kind to me." "There are young men, too, who can be kind," her aunt argued. "You still have time to find someone younger. What if he dies early and leaves you a widow?" Cynthia didn't respond. She had heard enough. That night, she lay in bed with her eyes open. Fear crept in. What if everyone was right? What if this wasn't real? But then her phone vibrated. "Kelvin, hope your day went well. Just checking on you. I saw some fresh oranges and thought of you. Should I drop them off tomorrow?" She stared at the message and smiled. No man had ever checked on her just because. No man had ever made her feel safe like this, not even once. The next day, Kelvin came around with a bag of fruit and didn't even stay long. He respected her space, and that meant more than diamonds. Later that evening, Cynthia called Jane. "I think I'm ready," she said. "Ready for what?" Jane asked. "To stop listening to people who don't know my story?"
It was a warm Sunday morning when Cynthia finally decided to take the bold step. She would introduce Kelvin to her parents. She had thought long and hard about it. Her mother had been calling nonstop, asking when she would bring the man that has stolen your peace of mind. Cynthia knew her parents were getting older and worried she might never settle down. Kelvin, as usual, was calm when she told him, "If you're ready, I'll go with you," he said softly. They fixed a date for the following Saturday. Cynthia couldn't sleep the night before. Her heart was beating fast. It wasn't just about introducing Kelvin. It was the age difference, the whispers, and the fear that her parents might judge him before even knowing him. She wore a soft blue lace gown and tied her hair in a bun. Kelvin showed up at 10 a.m. sharp, wearing a neat white caftan with gold embroidery. He looked every inch like the wealthy gentleman he was, confident but not arrogant. On the way to Guagualada, where Cynthia's parents lived, he kept reassuring her. "No matter how today goes, I respect you, Cynthia," he said. "If your parents don't accept me yet, I'll wait." Cynthia gave him a weak smile. She wished she had his calm spirit. They arrived around noon. Her parents were seated on the veranda, sipping malt. Her father wore his usual singlet and wrapper while her mother adjusted her scarf nervously as they approached. "Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, Ma," Kelvin greeted, bowing slightly. Her parents responded politely, but Cynthia could feel the tension in the air. They went inside. Kelvin introduced himself properly. He spoke calmly, respectfully, and with wisdom. He told them about his work, his background, and how he met Cynthia. He didn't brag or boast. He spoke like a man with nothing to hide. Her father asked many questions. "Why do you want to marry a woman 20 years younger than you?" Kelvin smiled and replied, "Because she brings peace to my life, and I will protect that peace with everything I have." Her mother watched Cynthia closely, searching her face for signs of confusion or pressure. But Cynthia sat upright, calm and confident. For the first time in years, her parents didn't see desperation in their daughter's eyes. They saw strength. After nearly 2 hours of conversation, Cynthia's father finally spoke. "You seem like a good man. It's not the age that worries me, it's your intentions. If you will truly love and care for our daughter, then we won't stop her." Cynthia exhaled deeply, holding back tears. That evening, as they drove back, she reached out and held Kelvin's hand. "Thank you," Kelvin smiled. "We've only just begun." After the visit to Cynthia's parents, things between her and Kelvin became stronger. She felt a sense of peace and maturity she had never experienced in any of her past relationships. Kelvin was intentional. Every call, every visit, every conversation felt real. But not everyone shared her joy. Whispers began in her neighborhood and even among old school friends. "Now, wow, Cynthia don't finally carry old man come house. She say love, but is it not money she's chasing? Why would a fine girl like her settle for someone that looks like her father?" The gossip grew louder when Cynthia and Kelvin were spotted together at JB Lake Mall. Cynthia wore a wine-colored jumpsuit, holding Kelvin's arm with a bright smile. They looked happy, but in the background, two women recorded a video on their phones, giggling and shaking their heads. Later that night, Jane, Cynthia's best friend, called her. "Babe, you die online." "No, it didn't happen. Dem don't carry your matter enter Facebook. Some girls are posting that you're dating one sugar daddy, like this." Cynthia paused, her chest tightened. She checked the post. There it was, a blurry picture of her and Kelvin at the mall with a sarcastic caption. "Ladies, no time again, no age, no be barrier to urgent 2K. At first, Cynthia felt embarrassed. The comments were worse than the post. Some laughed, others insulted. A few defended her, but most mocked her. She dropped her phone and cried quietly. She remembered how many nights she prayed for true love. Was it now a crime that love came in a different form than what people expected? Kelvin noticed her mood the next day. "Talk to me," he said, holding her hand as they sat in her shop. "They're mocking us because of your age," she said, avoiding his eyes. Kelvin sighed. "Cynthia, let me tell you something. The world will always talk. If I was your age and broke, they would still talk. If I was rich and young, they would say I leave you. You can't win with them." His words hit deep. "You're right," she said, "but I will." "It hurts." Kelvin nodded. "It will. But one day, the same people laughing will wish they had what we have." The evening, Cynthia posted her own message online. "To everyone laughing at me for loving someone older, may you find peace and joy that doesn't depend on people's opinions. Love is love." Some praised her courage, others still mocked. But deep inside, Cynthia knew she had crossed a bridge. She was no longer seeking approval from outsiders. She chose peace over pressure, love over public opinion, and she wasn't going back. 3 weeks after her bold post on social media, Cynthia noticed a shift in the way people treated her. Some people stopped talking to her, while others respected her bravery. But none of it mattered. Her focus was on Kelvin. He remained consistent, always visiting her shop, bringing thoughtful gifts, and showing her off like a queen. He didn't care about people's opinions, and that made Cynthia feel safe. One sunny Saturday afternoon, Kelvin surprised Cynthia with tickets to a private brunch at a fancy rooftop restaurant in Ugocy. They enjoyed palm wine and jollof rice under a white canopy. Soft music played in the background. Cynthia felt at peace until Kelvin suddenly went quiet. He looked at her, cleared his throat, and said, "I want to ask you something." Cynthia's heart skipped. "Okay, what is it?" she asked nervously. Kelvin reached into his baggie and pulled out a small white envelope. Inside was a printed invitation. "You've met my family. I've met yours. It's time to stop hiding and build something real," he said. Cynthia's hands trembled slightly as she opened the card. Her eyes widened when she read the words. "You're invited to the wedding of Cynthia and Kelvin, Saturday, March 12th, Abuja." She looked up in shock. "You already printed wedding invites." Kelvin chuckled. "I know you'd say yes. I wanted to be ready." Tears welled up in Cynthia's eyes, not out of sadness, but joy. This was real. This wasn't a dream. A man who saw her worth, valued her, and wanted the world to know he chose her. "Yes," she whispered. Kelvin smiled. "Say it again." "Yes, I'll marry you." They clinked their glasses together as the sun began to set. Back at home, Jane screamed in excitement when she saw the invite. "Cynthia, you don't hammer. This man really means business." Cynthia laughed, was still in shock. "But babe, you need to prepare. Some people are waiting to see you fail. We must give them something to choke on." The days that followed were filled with wedding planning. Cynthia chose a rich burgundy and gold theme. Her dress would be custom-made by one of Abuja's top designers. Kelvin spared no cost. He was determined to give her a wedding fit for royalty. But the whispers hadn't stopped. One morning, Jane came to Cynthia's shop with a serious face. "Guess what?" Cynthia sighed. "What?" he said. "You're just rushing to marry an old man out of desperation." Cynthia laughed, a deep, free laugh. "Let them say anything they want. I'm marrying peace, respect, and love, not their opinion." She had finally chosen herself, and she was ready to walk down the aisle, head held high. 2 weeks to the wedding, Cynthia's world felt like a fairy tale. Invitations had gone out, the gown was almost ready, and every day Kelvin made her feel more loved than the last. Her parents were proud, Jane was over the moon, and Cynthia finally felt whole. But fairy tales often have shadows. That Thursday afternoon, Cynthia was restocking drinks in her shop when a familiar face walked in. Her heart skipped. He looked thinner, tired, and unsure. "Cynthia," he said quietly. She stood still. "What are you doing here?" Ken walked closer. "Please, I just wanted to talk." "There's nothing to talk about," Cynthia snapped. "The man who used my money to marry another woman doesn't get to come back here." Ken sighed. "I made a mistake." Cynthia looked at him with disbelief. "You made a decision, not a mistake." He nodded. "I know. My marriage is over. She left 2 months ago." Cynthia folded her arms. "And that's supposed to be my problem?" "No, but I've been thinking about you. You were different. You were genuine. I didn't see it then." For a moment, silence fell between them. Ken's voice broke slightly. "I've lost everything. The crypto business failed. I lost my job, and my wife left me. All I have left is regret." Cynthia stared at him. The old her would have cried. The old her would have felt pity, but not anymore. "I'm getting married in 2 weeks," she said calmly. Ken's face dropped. "To who?" "To a real man," she replied proudly. "A man who loves and respects me." He tried to smile, but it came out broken. "I hope he makes you happy." "He already does." Ken turned and walked away slowly. Cynthia felt a strange peace settle over her. She hadn't even realized how much closure she needed. Later that evening, she told Kelvin what had happened. Kelvin didn't get angry. Instead, he took her hands and said, "The past shows us what we deserve. I'm grateful it led you to me." Cynthia smiled through watery eyes. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You don't know who you're marrying. Be careful." "As a friend." She froze. Kelvin noticed. "What's wrong?" She showed him the message. He raised an eyebrow. "Someone is clearly trying to ruin your peace." But Cynthia's heart began to race. Was this jealousy? Or was there something she didn't know? Kelvin wrapped his arms around her. "I have nothing to hide." She nodded slowly, but deep inside, her mind began to wonder, who sent that message, and why now? Cynthia couldn't sleep that night. The mysterious message kept replaying in her head. "You don't know who you're marrying. Be careful." A friend. Who would send such a message? Ken, Michael, or someone else? Kelvin had assured her he had nothing to hide, but the thought still lingered. She picked up her phone and read the message again. There was no picture, no clue, just doubt. The next day, Jane came to visit. "You look like someone who didn't sleep," Jane said, sitting down with a plate of jollof rice. Cynthia sighed. "Jane, I got a strange message last night. Someone warned me about Kelvin." Jane froze with her spoon in midair. "What kind of warning?" "That I don't know who I'm marrying," Cynthia said, showing her the message. Jane raised an eyebrow. "Maybe it's just someone jealous. Kelvin is rich, kind, and everything a woman wants. You know how people talk when they see a younger lady marrying a successful older man." "But what if it's true?" Cynthia asked quietly. "What if there's something he's not telling me?" Jane thought for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, then ask him again, but this time don't just hear what he says, watch how he says it." That evening, Cynthia invited Kelvin over for dinner. She cooked his favorite grilled fish and yam porridge and tried to keep the mood light. but her heart pounded when he sat across from her. "Kelvin," she said softly, "can I ask you something?" He looked up from his plate. "Anything?" She hesitated. "Have you ever been married before?" Kelvin smiled slightly. "No, I came close once, but she left me before the wedding. Since then I focused on work." Cynthia's eyes stayed on him. "Any children?" "No," he said. "Why are you asking all this again?" She took a breath. "I got a message, someone warning me about you." Kelvin leaned back and laughed softly. "Cynthia, you think I'm hiding something?" "I don't know what to think. I just want to be sure." Kelvin reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. He slid it across the table. Inside were documents, birth certificates, legal files, and a letter from a fertility clinic. "I've never been married. I don't have children, and I've always been upfront about my life. If there's anything you want to know, ask me directly. I have nothing to hide from the woman I love." Cynthia stared at the papers. Her heart softened. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I guess I got scared." Kelvin smiled and reached across the table to hold her hand. "I would rather you ask than assume." That night, Cynthia slept better, but one thing was clear. Someone didn't want this wedding to happen, and she was determined to find out who. Days passed, but the mystery message still haunted Cynthia even. Though Kelvin had cleared the air, the silence around who sent it made her uncomfortable. She decided it was time to investigate quietly. Cynthia began by ruling out the obvious. It couldn't be her ex Ken, he was now married. And Michael, he had gone back to Anambra, and they had completely cut ties. Then one morning, Jane walked into Cynthia's shop looking pale. "Cynthia," she said, locking the door behind her, "I know who sent that message." Cynthia's heart skipped. "Who?" Jane hesitated before speaking. "Amaka, Kelvin's childhood friend. She owns a beauty spa in Maitama. I overheard her talking to someone at a party last weekend. She was bragging about sending a warning message to save Kelvin from a mistake." Cynthia narrowed her eyes. "Why would she do that?" Jane sighed. "Because she's been in love with Kelvin for years. Everyone close to him knows. She was expecting him to propose to her. Your presence changed everything." Cynthia couldn't believe it. "So, she wants to ruin my relationship?" "Exactly." Jane nodded. "She thinks you're using him because of his age and wealth." Cynthia was silent. Her chest felt tight. She wasn't going to allow jealousy to destroy something beautiful. Later that evening, Cynthia decided to confront the situation. She didn't want drama, just peace. She asked Kelvin if they could go for a walk in Javi Lake Park. The breeze was calm, and the sunset painted the sky in orange and gold. "I want to ask you something, Kelvin," she said, gently holding his hand. "What's the story between you and Amaka?" Kelvin's face dropped. He looked ahead for a while before speaking. "Amaka and I have known each other since childhood. Our parents were close. Everyone expected we'd end up together. But she's more like a sister to me. I never saw her that way." "Does she know that?" Cynthia asked. "I've told her before, but I guess she never really let go." Cynthia nodded. "She's the one who sent me that message." Kelvin looked surprised. "Are you sure?" Cynthia explained what Jane told her. He was quiet for a long time. "I'll talk to her," he finally said. "I never wanted you to be dragged into this. I'm sorry." Cynthia held his arm tight. "You don't owe me any apology. I just want peace." The wind blew softly around them, and they kept walking quietly. That moment reminded Cynthia of something important. Love doesn't come easy, but when it's real, it's worth fighting for. After the grand proposal on her 32nd birthday, Cynthia's life felt like a dream. She and Kelvin planned their honeymoon to Paris, the city of love. For the first time in years, Cynthia felt hope and happiness. In Paris, everything was magical. They walked hand in hand along the Seine River, visited beautiful museums, and dined in elegant restaurants. Kelvin was attentive and loving, making Cynthia feel like a queen. But deep down, a small doubt lingered in Cynthia's mind. Why had Kelvin never talked much about his past? She decided to wait until they returned to Abuja to ask him. Back home, 3 weeks later, the surprise came in a letter addressed to Cynthia, delivered to her shop. It was from an old family lawyer. With trembling hands, Cynthia opened it. The letter revealed a secret. Kelvin was not just a successful CEO. He was the sole heir to one of Nigeria's oldest and richest royal families in the Niger Delta. His family had kept this secret to protect him from threats over years. Kelvin had hidden this truth to protect Cynthia and himself from the dangers of fame and power. But there was more. The letter said Kelvin's late wife, Ada, was not only his first love, but also the daughter of a powerful political figure who died mysteriously. Kelvin had spent years protecting his children from enemies connected to that tragedy. When Cynthia confronted Kelvin, he took a deep breath. "Yes, it's true," he said softly. "I wanted to tell you so many times, but I feared it would scare you away. My past is full of shadows, but you are my light." Cynthia's heart raced. She felt shock and awe, but also pride. She looked into Kelvin's eyes and saw nothing but love. "I don't care about the dangers or the past," she said firmly. "I love you for who you are, all of you." Kelvin smiled, relief flooding his face. Together they faced the world. Cynthia's friends and family were amazed by the news but respected their love. Their life changed, but their love stayed strong. Cynthia's grocery shop grew, supported by Kelvin's influence, but she remained humble and true to herself. The mockery and bullying from before became distant memories. Now, Cynthia stood tall, a woman who dared to love beyond age and social fears. As they planned their next trip abroad, Cynthia whispered to Kelvin, "Thank you for choosing me." Kelvin squeezed her hand gently. "I will always choose you, Cynthia, now and forever." Their story was no longer just about age or rumors. It was about trust, courage, and a love that surprised even the strongest heart. Never give up on love, no matter what others say or how hard the journey seems. True love doesn't always come in the way we expect. Sometimes it arrives when we least expect it, in forms that surprise us. Be patient, stay strong, and keep your heart open. Love can heal, transform, and bring happiness beyond your wildest dreams. Cynthia's story reminds us that age, past pain, or judgment from others should never stop us from believing in the power of love. Hold on, because your love story is waiting to be written.